Hello and welcome to Global Morning. Well, this is a beautiful day. That's I'm full of smiles, and it's International Women's Day, and what a way to celebrate women on this beautiful day, the 8th day of March 2026, talking about women and how beautiful and amazing they are. Welcome once again. I am Anita Patrick, and of course, I'll be doing this alone. I have my co-host with me in the studio in person of Mukhtar Kasim. Mukhtar, how you doing?
A beautiful good morning to you, and also happy International Women's Day to you, Anita Patrick, my beautiful woman, and to all the women out there. I wish you all a great celebration. Women are beautiful, amazing creatures.
Yes.
I can't even describe how amazing women are. But then, you already know how I feel about that. So I'm happy International Women's Day to all the women out there, to all the mothers, all the sisters, basically all the women. Happy International Women's Day to all of you.
Well, thank you so much, Mukhtar. I'm trying to beautify myself the more so I get the healings. Don't mind me.
Today is your day, so you can do
all the shakara is needed. You know, it's our day, and what a way to start the day. Beautiful things ahead for women. Women, just like you said, are amazing beings. Like I was speaking to a friend you brought in and was talking to her, and I said women know how to max their emotions and just stand
and keep on going.
And keep on going.
You see, situations are really tough, but you, like with our mothers, even though people have said those kind of characteristics as things of the past and they can't do it now, some women say that, but you see that they still continue to go on in spite of all the turbulence, all the challenges. You never see it on their faces. They never let it get to you as a child because they know it's going to be a negative effect on you, so they're able to stomach all of that and still keep a smiling face, keep a happy home and all of that. That's an amazing
That's a whole
thing.
lot. It has to do with psychology, emotional intelligence, a whole lot playing out for a woman, because I ask sometimes, why do women really have to give? Let's start with mothers, yes. And as the first girl child, I was coming to work, I think last week, and I saw a baby girl who's already building her strength in nurturing already. She was walking to school. Her mom was not there, her dad was not there. But see, I saw her carrying her lunchbox, carrying out of her baby brother with her school.
I was going to ask you if she had a sibling.
Yes.
It's like you said, the first born girls. Yeah, they have this motherly nature, especially with their siblings. They tend to see themselves as an extension of a mother, and I think that's from where the women folk get that particular motherly nature, right from the childhood, and they grow up into it. And even with their husbands, you see some women, they mother their husbands in that sense of the word.
You wouldn't blame them, especially when it's a first girl child, but I try to tell women who are first girl child to find a balance. Psychologically, you already programmed to sound like an independent person because of the weight of things they carry, but that shows the strength of the woman and what capacity they can actually come in. Because if you have such a woman who understands, women generally have that capacity to carry up and push. And we want to say a very beautiful thank you to all the women. An amazing work
you've done a great job.
I'm telling you. So today, everyone there, please celebrate a woman around you. And from us here, we want to say we love you, women. It's our day. Take yourself out. Whether you're married, your husband will take you out. If you're not married, please give yourself a treat as the beautiful woman that you are. And that kicks us off straightly to our program today. Of course, it's Global Morning, and we have a lot lined up for you on the program. First on our list is the newspaper review segment. I will bring you stories making the headlines, where we'll tell you what's happening around us and for you to be informed. We'll also have our discussion segment, where we'll bring you some topical issues where we want us to dissect and talk about them and see the way forward. And also, of course, it's Women's Day. We'll have that discussion on this particular program. Please stay with us as we turn our focus to newspaper review segments after this. Please stay with us.
Wake up with Global Morning, your daily guide to what's happening and making the rounds.
We delve into headlines, newspaper reviews, spot-on analysis, policies, current events, real talk, real issues that affect us all.
From the latest trends to the debate, every topic, every angle, Global Morning is where it all starts.
Global Morning.
For the latest issues,
Always on point.
watch Global Morning Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Global Television.
It's good to have you back. Let's quickly dive into the papers. Let's tell you, we have The Nation, we have Sunday Telegraph, we have The Vanguard, we have Punch newspaper, we have The Sun newspaper, and of course, Weekend Trust and the likes of them. But quickly, we'll start our focus with The Nation newspaper, and it has its own major headline written boldly here. It starts with federal government reviews options as Iran war impacts grows. We have riders that says petrol price crosses 1,000 naira per litre, queues return. We also have where it says Nigeria not facing physical collapse, Edu insists. We also have another rider that says FG activates measures for safety of nationals in Middle East. Of course, with what's happening, there have to be a review of so that we have the best. I said The Nation newspaper. That's what we're dealing with right now. The Nation. Mukhtar, you see that there was a whole lot talking about the Iran war. They have a lot happening with them.
It's a lot, Anieti. The war has entered its second week today, and we've seen an escalation. We've seen strikes continue between Israel, United States and Iran. And of course in Nigeria, people will tell you, how does it concern us? But this is how it concerns us with things like this. The price of fuel has gone to
someone actually talked about it, and I was like, why do we always have to look? Why don't we take advantage of countries who have oil just like Nigeria have and build ours? Why is it always coming to affect us most times? Someone had arguments with me, and I was
That's a valid argument, but you know, the international oil market is one that is like a global market.
Yes.
So everybody who is a participant in that market will be affected,
of course,
either one way or another. And with Nigeria, now example, the price of fuel has now skyrocketed to about $80 per barrel in the international market. And don't forget, Nigeria is not totally self-sufficient in terms of our consumption of fuel. We still have to import some of those things. So those imports would invariably lead to an increase in the pump price here in Nigeria. That's why we've seen it go over 1,000 naira. Even the Dangote refinery still has some of his crude from outside the country, even though he buys from the NNPCL. So these are things that will happen. And with the increase in fuel price, we know that we'll see increase in transport costs. We'll see increase in the prices of commodities in the market. So this is a war that Nigeria is a very concerned stakeholder, if you like, in the war, even though sometimes we don't like to view it from that lens, but it's something that concerns us very, very critically, actually.
I like the fact that federal government is reviewing its options to see how they can navigate through all of this and see how Nigerians can find a safe landing that benefits all of us. Well, that story is there for you to pick up a copy. Starts on the front page cover and continues on another page where you can see for yourself. Well, we have other stories making around
yes, above the mast, you see a story just by the left that says Electoral Act 2026 outs cost jurisdiction on parties' internal affairs, with a rider that says unqualified candidates seeking election risk 10-year ban, with details on page 5 of the Nation's newspaper.
I like the fact that there's a focus on politicians now, and candidates would need to behave, fix their internal crisis, get their clearance, from party primaries, and ensure that they match candidates. Because I saw where the IPAC, were also protesting against the Electoral Act and saying they could boycott the process. But let's see. And
of course, people have said before now that party affairs should be left to the party to decide. The courts should not have any interference.
Because it's an internal thing.
It's an internal thing.
It should be able to be resolved. They have measures.
They have mechanisms already within those parties. The Constitution tells you this is how we resolve our crisis. But we oftentimes see that aggrieved members run to the courts to get injunctions and orders, like we've seen even with the PDP crisis and other crises.
Look at what is playing out right now.
Of course, that's why I think this is a bit of a good one with this amendment that would tell the courts to stay off and allow parties to resolve themselves within the mechanisms provided in their own constitutions.
All right. Well, that's it. Let's also see other stories making a round. We also have where it says Zamfara PDP governor may decide for APC next week. And we have a writer that says Lawal PDP leaders await appeal court verdict. That story is on page 8.
That's quite interesting times, and we've seen the wave of defections, and this is not something that's surprising, is it?
It's a time of alignment and realignment.
Exactly, like you like to describe it.
I like to put it that way and just go past it because we know what this is about, basically.
And then let's look below the nameplate to your left. It's not a very pleasant story. It says, Borno attack, government won't allow terrorists occupy Nigerian soil. That is Vice President Kashim Shettima speaking. And the writer here says, FG deploys additional tactical assets reinforcement in the northwest and the northeast rather, and we hope that this deployment would see results, because we've heard a lot of rhetoric, a lot of talks, but we want to see those talks translate into real-time results where people don't have to be attacked on a regular basis like we've seen in recent times.
Well, hopefully, just like you said, we expect more good news. We've seen results in some measures, but Nigerians still want more playing out for them. Well, that's it on that, and that story is on page 7. Let's also see another story which is on that same page 7 that talks about Akwa Ibom. Akwa Ibom women endorsed Tinubu Akpabio Eno ahead of 2027, and rather says First Lady commissions Senior Citizens Center. That story is on page 7 as well.
And just below that story, we see the story that says real reason El-Rufai's ministerial appointment was aborted. That is Fani Kayode speaking, with details on page 2 of the Nation's Sunday newspaper.
Well, that's it with the Nation's Sunday newspaper. Pick up a copy. Interesting stories that you need to pay attention to and find out more details on that. Let's turn our focus and look at what's happening with Sunday Telegraph newspaper.
The Sunday Telegraph also has this big story that says 2027 as the kicker. APC may yield 6 states to the PDP, with writers that say if Tinubu secures second term, weakest faction wins court cases. Another writer here says president opposes ruling party taking all states, with another one here that says it would endanger democracy. The last writer here says PDP will bounce back after general election. That is an ex-governor speaking ahead of all the happenings in the build-up to 2027.
Okay, well, we know politics has its own way of playing its own dimension.
But you see, one interesting thing I'm seeing here is it says president opposes ruling party taking all
I didn't want to
states.
talk about it. I just want to leave it as it is. It's an interesting one because we've seen so far, just like we've seen a lot of governors, a lot of there is a state that has moved. And as an executive governor moves, he has his
the entire party structure would eventually move along.
So, and we've talked about the issue where we was trying to see that it's almost turning into a one-party system.
That's what I was going to talk about. Eventually see, and with this, allaying the fears that if we cede some states to these ruling parties, it might create a healthy environment, and those talks of a one-party system might become history, and it's something that I think by and large, it's not going to be a bad one for our democracy to have healthy competitions, like we always like to say.
That's the best way to look at it. If you want to have democracy play out, well, you need to have a position where there's good competition, good chances of check and balance and all that. But when you have everything zoomed or just one party, it's just the ideology of the party that will always speak, and mostly not the people's voice in my own thought, and basically how I feel this should play out. But let's move away from politics and look at some of the stories making the rounds above that particular story. We have Khomeini's assassination may fuel new waves of global terrorism. That's Akin Terinwa speaking there, with the writer that says Iran fighting self-survival battle. War may not be fought on the battlefield. We also have religious connotation, likely new frontier. That story is on page 2, 14 and 19. Well, there's a whole lot. Insecurity has caused a lot of issues of I'm even tired of talking about it because yesterday I got 2 stories of people who I knew who also had to go before their time, and I felt really sad all through yesterday. And I was like, what's happening? This is one that so many, and here you have another story of someone's assassination and how the drama is affecting the global space, and terrorism thing also still on the rise. So all of this are concerns we need to really pay attention. Look at lives that has been lost, issues that goes around all these terrorism issues that should be downplayed so we can have global peace playing out across borders.
Honestly, this is like you mentioned, global peace. It's a very big blow to global peace, because we've seen the nations, the United Nations and all of those international bodies calling for de-escalation of this conflict. But analysts, based on this particular story, are saying that with the killing of the Iranian leader, we might see people saying we have got to retaliate. And then with this retaliation, you see them forming new frontiers in terms of terrorist groups. And that will add to already the massive array of terrorist groups we have in the world. And so that's not going to be a good one for international peace. But by and large, what we, Nigeria as a government, has called is for de-escalation of this conflict, for the parties involved to come to the round table to find a middle ground, find negotiation, so that the already fragile system that we have in the international order of peace will not even become worse off. So we hope that...
And this is also building a lot of humanitarian crises across the place, which is one of the reasons why the UN is also speaking so loud about it.
If the story that I saw yesterday about the UN, the Fletcher, which is the chief of the humanitarian coordinating effort, has said that more money is actually being spent on war rather than being spent on humanitarian crisis.
And it's high time we turned the channel of the money where it's channeling to.
We should put them to those places that would eventually avoid war rather than escalating the war across the world. We have too many wars already going on. We don't want to see more of
like
those
I mentioned,
wars.
Global peace is the way forward. That's what we're looking for. So, but let's move away from that. I still tell you some issues here above the marks head there. It still says Afenifere condemns terrorist invasion of Yoruba land, talking of terrorism and all that. We also have where it says, on the radar, challenges Southwest governors, the cries barbarism in Ekiti or your the story on page 5.
Beside that story, going back to the international system, it says Strait of Hormuz, 3,000 vessels, 20,000 seafarers stranded in the Middle East. That is the International Migration Organization speaking with details. And a writer here says fuel price near 1,100 in Lagos State. Details of this story is on page 3 and 4 of the Sunday Telegraph. And away from that, let's see just by the left a bit of politics within Nigeria. It says state schools, we are addressing INEC's concern. That is the Labour Party speaking. Details on page 5.
Well, that's it with the Labour Party. They are like it's internal crisis and they're trying to resolve theirs and find a way forward. Well, let's also look at this. So it says Ubima attack. FG should safeguard opposition members' lives. That's Atiku speaking with the writer that says police investigating attack. PPRO speaking there. Also have a bit about power. It says discuss generated 207 billion naira in December. That's next speaking there. They're talking about what they generated so far.
We've seen so much money being generated, but people are asking, okay, where this money is going to? If these things, because this goes at people that distribute this electricity to households. The question people are asking is, where is the electricity? Many of us slept without power last night and even before then. So they're asking, you're having this revenue.
amounts
It's a
coming.
huge
Like,
one.
People pay for it.
People are paying for this. This is a part of our own monies, like they've said, because we pay for electricity, but we are not seeing this power. Why?
It's not distributed equally around all sections of it. Well, that's it. Pick up a copy on page 3 of the Sunday Telegraph and find out what it is.
And the last story on this particular newspaper here says, your sacrifices will not be in vain. The president tells armed forces, with a writer that says, we won't succumb to attempts to undermine national security. And that is Shettima speaking, with details on page 3 and 26 of the Sunday Telegraph.
Well, that's it. Let's quickly turn our focus to Sunday Tribune newspaper. Sunday Tribune has its own lead story there, just like Mukhtar always says, permutations.
Permutations, right?
2027 permutations. There's a whole happening. Aso Rock in a fix over Shettima, and we have the writer that says insiders top among choices as religion remains stubborn variable. We also have Labour leaders declare support for Tinubu's re-election, and that story is on page 4 of the Sunday Tribune paper. I don't even let's
move above the nameplate. That is, we see one that says, it's the story we've seen previously, so we're not going to have so much on it. It says, attack on Borno, we will not be cowed by terrorists. That is Shettima speaking, with a writer that says, this administration won't rest until abducted citizens safely reunite with their families, with details on page 4 of this particular newspaper.
And beside that, we have where it says why we set up Obafemi Awolowo Future Leaders Fellowship, and Awolowo Dosumo speaking there. That's on page 2 and 23 of that paper. And then let's come down below the major lead story there. It says there's some. Let's leave the story because we looked at it earlier. Let's look at this one that comes in boldly. It says Nigerians groan, demand answers as fuel price surges nationwide. Well, the writer that says petrol sells between 1,050 naira and 1,300 naira.
And of course, above that story, a story you've not seen, a bit of politics. It says Kwankwaso loyalists warn over plan to impeach deputy governor for refusing to defect to the APC, and that story is on page 4 of the Sunday Tribune newspaper.
Well, that's it on the Sunday Tribune. Pick up a copy and find out other stories and what's happening with the Sunday Tribune. Let's now focus and look at what's happening with the Sunday Independent. Sunday Independent newspaper. There, it has its own story. Still talking about the Middle East drama playing out. It says, Middle East war, how FG can't save Nigerians from fallout. Experts speaking there. We'll find out what the expert thinks should be the way forward.
Of course,
because there's a whole lot.
We have a lot of people.
We need to forge ahead and get to success.
Saving our people that are in those particular
who are trapped in this particular region, actually. Still talking about the fuel price above the masthead. There you have the story still talking about fuel pump price crosses 1,000 naira per litre in Abuja as filling stations shut down. And pick up a copy and find out what's really the problem. And then below that, Mukhtar.
Yes, we see a story that says Nigeria's economy in or out of the woods. That's a question, and if you want to find out the answer, just pick up this particular newspaper and get the details of that story. Okay,
well, that's the much we can take on that particular paper, Sunday Independent. I like the way it made it very straight and punchy. You just didn't get
in or out?
Answer yourself and find out what it is about.
Exactly.
But let's go to my favorite, one of my favorite papers, the Weekend Trust.
The infographics and all the pictures it brings.
You know, I like the way they always bring out, you know. It makes it more dramatic.
You know, they say pictures
tell story
more than 1,000 words. Exactly.
I tell you. So this is a way of it telling its own story. And then let's start with the picture, this particular picture, and then the caption that comes with it.
Exactly.
It says Tinubu's men, rise of the loyalists. And then you have pictures which I'm sure everyone can identify.
Exactly.
Who are the rise. His men.
Of course. You know, people have said one thing about the president is his ability to reward loyalty. And they've said people who have worked with him from time immemorial, from his time as governor, they all are also very, very present in this particular government. So I think that's what this particular story is talking about.
Well, that's it. So let's pick up a story, the paper on page 4, and we find out what the details are is saying basically about
this. Now let's move above that particular story. It's something that has trended. It says Dambazao gets China, Omokri, Mexico as Tinubu post ambassadors, with details on page 26.
Well, we also have where beside that story, we said wives of alleged coup plotters protest 160 days detention. Well, that story is on page 26 of the Weekend Trust. And beside that there, we also have where it says court grants Malami son, wife bail. On page 34, finally they got the bill. They've
gotten the bill. Well, of course, we know many people have said, I hope that's not going to be the beginning of the end, because bail is sometimes, if it's not it's a case that it's your right in some cases, but it should not exonerate you, and it should not make sure that that becomes the end of the case. We Nigerians are watching to see how this particular case pans out as it concerns our fight against graft and corruption in the country.
Well, that's actually very true. So let's see the other story. Just below the picture story on that it says how Ramadan feeds needy small businesses. Story on page 29. Don't forget, earlier we also had where Sadia brought us that.
Of course,
talked about the economic value that comes with the Ramadan season.
Exactly.
Well, that's a good one for the economy as well.
Yes, and away from that story, I think this is the last story here. It says harrowing world of Plateau, Benue, children of war, with details on page 9. Not a very pleasant one, actually.
Not actually, because of course you can imagine the psychological effect those children have had to go.
Many of them are now orphans. Their parents are
struggling to survive
on life. Their own. And it's not. We just hope they are able to find the right help that would make sure that they don't also go down the wrong road because they don't have the right guidance to put them aright, and hope they find the right guidance, basically.
Okay, so let's turn our focus and see what this day newspaper has for us. This day newspaper starts with its major headline that leads the front cover. It says Akpabio, opposition parties will remain in confusion till after 2027 election. I like the back and forth when it comes to electoral issues.
Exactly.
Politics.
And with the Senate President himself, people always say he has this way of being very, I don't know the word, but he's always he's always pinching the opposition exactly with the right words.
Well, that's that story. Pick up a copy and find out what's happening.
And basically, of course, just below that, Trump vows to escalate war in Iran. Iran war as Iran regrets strikes on neighboring states and apologizes. And above that, we see a story that says, above the nameplate that is, it says to avert potential vulnerabilities, CBN directs commercial banks to conduct stress test, with a rider that says bank deposit 61.1 trillion naira with the Apex Bank in February 2026.
Well, there's a whole lot happening where you need to find out what's happening with the banking sector and find out what's safe to say. But what we have here, it says Shetima to insurgents, Tinubu government will not be cowed by attempts to undermine nation's collective peace. That story is on page 7. Find out what the story is really saying. And quickly, below the picture story there, it says marketers seek FG's intervention as Middle East crisis pushes petrol price above 1,000 naira per litre. That story is on page 5 of this day newspaper. Pick up a copy, and that's where we leave it at with this day newspaper. Let's quickly take just a few major headlines with the Sun newspaper that has its own story. The Sun newspaper leads with a fresh own story. It says fallout of APC congresses, fresh crisis on this in states. We also have where it says party national convention under threat as agreed members weigh legal options. We also have NWC, that's National Working Committee, Reconciliation Committee, raise against time to keep March 25th convention date.
That's a whole lot, of course. And another story here that interests me, it says Siraike digs into ex-governors, allow your successors to breathe. It says former governors must stop meddling in how successors run their state, with a second writer that says condemns APC for restricting options for party primaries.
Well, that's what you expect, because he just had he was just named the national what's it called, the leader of the new party,
yes.
Nigerian Democratic Party, Congress, right? Yes. If I'm not mistaken, where he's the NDC, where he's not he's now the leader, and so of course he's looking for a way of bringing his party to limelight, of course, because it's just starting off. She expects a whole lot coming.
But don't you think his rhetorics are valid? For me, I think they are, because he says, if you already are a governor and you've left office, you brought me there, I know I owe you a bit of allegiance, of course, morality and all of that. But you should not be overly obsessive about how I run my own governance, because you did yours, now it's my turn. Why not let me just breathe?
Allow me to breathe
and do my thing. So that's it.
Okay, well, that's it with that particular story. Then we also have above that where it says International Women's Day, above the nameplate, International Women's Day 2026. Women should support other women to rise. Ajibade, co-founder, we have Get Work Nigeria, speaking to the issue. We also have a story that says, beside that, we have Nigerians living in Iran, safe, secure, envoy, speaking there on page 26. We also have, just beside that, we also have where it says, Tinubu renews pledge to eradicate terror, boost troops' morale. And of course, we have writers accompanying the story there. But that's it on the Sunday Sun newspaper. Sorry.
Of course, that's what we have on that particular newspaper. And by and large, it's also where we'll stop this particular edition of the newspaper review. We go on a break, and when we return, it will be time for us to go into our first discussion of the day. Don't go anywhere.
Wake up with Global Morning, your daily guide to what's happening and making the rounds.
We delve into headlines, newspaper reviews, spot-on analysis, policies, current events, real talk, real issues that affect us all.
From the latest trends to the debate, every topic, every angle, Global Morning is where it all starts.
Global Morning,
For the latest issues,
always on point.
watch Global Morning Monday to Friday at 7 a.m., Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Global Television.
In an age of breaking news, you need a trusted source that prioritizes accurate, factual, and unbiased reporting. This is AM News, and I am Ubong Usoro.
On Global Television, our news is rooted in verified and authoritative storytelling that keeps you educated, informed, and enlightened on all the issues that matter to you. I am Sadia Yakubu. This is Midday News.
You can trust a multi-platform news broadcast, real-time and fast-check stories for all the big local and foreign headlines round the clock. I am Ramsey Enoch Agbo. This is News Express.
Our array of anchors delivers the news to our teeming viewers, breaking it down with context and perspective. This is News Cycle on Global Television. I am Anieti Patrick.
And the flagship news is your hub for the day's most engaging stories. This is News Prime, and I am Jumai Manson.
Did you miss any of our news rounds? No worries. Catch up at 10 p.m. and midnight, 7 days of the week. I am Mukhtar Kasim.
Global TV is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. We're active across all social media platforms at Global TV NG.
Global TV News, accurate and unbiased. I'm Uyi Agmofwebe. Our language, our vibrant culture and colorful tradition, our industrious and hospitable people. This is Nigeria, a nation that prides itself in abundant human and natural resources. From east to west, north to south, we sparkle, we shine, we have a common bond. Fellow Nigerians, let's do away with ethnic, religious and regional sentiments that divide us as a people. God has blessed us and empowered us to find strength in diversity. Let's make our faith and way of worship our source of unity as we build a nation that stays united. Nigeria, together today, together always. This is a public announcement brought to you by Global Television.
At Witchtech Cables, we don't just make cables, we deliver excellence. Our products are built with advanced technology, trusted for their unmatched quality and durability. With a wide range of cables, swift delivery, and continuous innovation, we stay ahead of the market demand. We are proudly Nigerian, fully indigenous, yet world-class. Backed by a professional team, strong technical support, and a deep commitment to customer satisfaction. Witchtech Cables is more than a brand, it's a promise. Witchtech Cables, quality cables better than the best.
Well, we're still here on Global Morning, and of course, it's a discussion segment. Like I said, today is International Women's Day 2026. Every year, we celebrate women across the world, marking this particular day, 8th of March, to talk about women. And so today, we'll be looking at the significance, global importance, and commemoration for celebrating this particular day. Hello and welcome to this particular segment of Global Morning Discussion. Well, today the world marks International Women's Day 2026, a global celebration of achievements, resilience, and contributions of women across different sectors of society, from politics and media to education, business, technology. Women continue to break barriers, challenge stereotypes, and shape the future of communities around the world. Yet, while progress has been made, many women still face challenges ranging from inequality and limited opportunities to discrimination and violence. So these concerns are always raised every year, but this year's commemoration provides another opportunity for reflection, advocacy, and renewed commitments to empowering women and girls everywhere around the world. Joining me to discuss the significance, global importance, and the way forward for women empowerment, particularly for the new generation, is an outstanding international journalist from the Gambia. My sister, I always refer to her that way, Julde Njen. Hi, Julde. It's good to have you join me on the program, Julde, all the way from Gambia. How are you doing, Julde?
Good morning, Aniti, and happy International Women's Day to you and to the entire viewers. And happy International Day to every journalist out there who is doing so well to ensure that, the news is out, people are informed, and, they're fighting inequalities across the globe. Happy International Women's Day to you.
Thank you so much, my darling. Happy International Women's Day. It's good to see your beautiful face again on this wonderful day to celebrate ourselves as women and every other woman out there. Today is special to us. And of course, what a time to talk about what impact and what we've been doing so far. Let's understand the focus for us on International Women's Day, basically. Judah, let's begin from the basics. Many people celebrate International Women's Day every year, but not everyone fully understands its origin.
Right.
With the theme of this year's celebration, Give to Gain, giving our support to help advance gender equality, like you mentioned, reinforcing a sense of connection and purpose. This creates an important ripple effect for spreading impacts. Can you briefly explain what International Women's Day represents and why it remains globally significant today?
Thank you very much once again, Anyeti. International Women's Day, as you know, is commemorated on the 8th of March every year. And this is a day set aside to actually look at examine the achievements of women and also to advocate for gender equality for women and girls, worldwide. So this is a day also that, is set aside to by the United Nations to look at the actions that all the countries around the world have been taking in advancement of the achievements that have been done as far as the empowerment of women and girls is concerned in the world. But also this is a day that, we critically look at issues and then, examine how far countries have gone as far as the empowerment, of women and girls is concerned around the world. Again, also, this is a moment where countries look at themselves, internal policies, and, examine it to see whether it has really suited, they're really doing well as far as legal protection of rights of women is concerned, whether also creation of job opportunities, equal opportunities is concerned, whether also discriminatory laws that are there to hinder the progress of women is concerned. So this is a perfect opportunity for states, countries to look at, their policies, their programs, and also the initiatives that they have rolled out in, commemoration of the day, but also how far they have gone. I think this is a perfect moment to actually celebrate. And a lot of people are actually saying that, International Women's Day should not only be celebrated just one day because women contribute a lot. They are in the farms, women are in agriculture, they're in technology, they're in STEM. Women are contributing so much towards the development of, the communities. Women are contributing so much towards ensuring that, the country moves forward. As the saying goes, educating a woman means educating a nation. Empowering a woman means empowering an entire nation. So that shows the importance of women's contribution as far as development of any country is concerned. So once those women are left behind, if those women are not empowered, if they are not supported, it becomes very, very challenging for that country to move forward, in totality. So like you mentioned initially, this year's campaign theme is focused on Give to Gain, and also the theme of this year is rights, justice, and action for all women and girls. And it's very important for actually countries to dismantle all these barriers that prevent the women and girls from exercising their full rights.
Let's talk about this. I like where you broke everything down for us to see the perspective and the positive sides to all of these things. Well, over the decades, we've seen progress in women's rights globally. Just like I'm speaking to you from Nigeria here, and you are in the Gambia, talking about women's strengths and capacity. From your perspective as an international journalist covering social issues, how far has the global community come in advancing gender equity? Because of course when we go, we get stereotypes, we get issues. How has it been for you, Julde?
There has been a steady progress that has been done as far as gender equality is concerned, and also the empowerment of women and girls globally. But also the pace at which this is going is very slow, as evident by the United Nations data which they've published. They're saying that 64% of legal rights that that men hold worldwide are greater than that of the women. So that goes to say that there is huge gender inequalities that exist in areas including work, including employment, including economic opportunities, and also even money, safety, and protection from violence, from family marriage and property ownership. And we know that property ownership, for instance, in Africa, in the African region, has been something that is very, very challenging, for women to own property, women to own land. So despite the fact that there has been progress that has been made, women still have only 64% of the legal rights, women have 64% of legal rights compared to men. So you can see that, even though progress has been made, there is still a long way that people need to go, countries need to go, communities need to go in ensuring that they give full legal protections to women and girls around the globe. And also it's very important to also look at the challenges that are, hindering the women and girls across the African region or around the world. If you look at child marriage, has been something that has been really also remain a legal issue in many countries, affecting around millions of girls every year. Millions of girls every year globally are forced into child marriage. So if you look at that, comparing it to the progress that has been made, you realize that there is a lot of gap that still remains to be addressed. So 64 countries lack consent as far as basic definition also of rape is concerned. We know that these are things that are also affecting women and girls, and it has the potential to traumatize them throughout their lifetime. So if you look at the percentage at which women and girls, consent in terms of lacking of consent in terms of the legal definition of rape, it's so high as well, because we're talking of 54%. Of countries like this. So that is actually huge. And also when you talk about child marriage, like I mentioned, 72% of countries also allow child marriage in all or some circumstances. That is also a huge figure that needs to be addressed if you want to have women who are empowered, women who are brave, women who are resilient, and women who are fearless. These things that needs to be addressed in order to ensure that we have generational, changes of women that are brave and also women that are empowered. But also, if you look at the number of countries also that do not have laws mandating equal pay for work and equal value, you realize that 44% of countries around the world do not allow women to have equal pay or value of the work that they have done. Okay, let me give you a classical example. For instance, if I am doing the same work, and there is a man who is also doing the same work as I am doing, the high chances of the man being paid more than I am is very high. And they're saying that now 44% of the countries around the world, have this, where they have increased the payment of men compared to the women. And if you look at that also, there is a lot of inequalities that passes around that as well. So we have a long way to go as far as that is concerned as well. So justice is actually so difficult to attain, Anieti, because also according to global surveys, they're saying that women face gender barriers to justice than men in nearly 70 countries. So if you look at that as well, so these key barriers include, discriminatory laws, weak implementation of legal protection, and access to.
All right, Jude, I see that you have a whole lot of statistics, Lina, but let's look at this. I like the fact that you talked about child marriage limitations, the gaps left with this. Right. So let's look at the fact that, looking at today's generation of young women, would you say the opportunities available now are greater than in the past? Looking at the fact that you mentioned the issue of early child marriage, which is also a major barrier, the limiting the girl who has potentials to grow. And also you talked about the fact that work environments or work scenarios have the male folks have a better opportunity than the women. Is that what is playing out, or would you say the women of today are having more opportunities than we had in the past, or are we making good progress so far?
We are actually making progress, Anieti, because looking at the past, if you were to compare it now, you see that a lot of women are also in STEM. A lot of women are in male-dominated areas that, before you don't even think about it. But now you said women engineers, women experts, women in technology. So it shows that there is a progress that has been registered as far as women taking up key positions that were before dominated by men is concerned. But again, the pace at which this is going is very slow. Nations need to speed up the pace at which this progress has been made. If not, we have a long way to go in ensuring that we have equal access to these opportunities than with our main counterpart. Then there needs to be a bridge in the gap. And how to bridge that is to ensure that all these regulatory frameworks or international conventions that have been ratified or treaties that have been ratified in various countries, they should be able to implement them. But also we've realized that all these laws, treaties, international conventions, most of these countries actually have them. But the problem with that is that there is lack of implementation, or there is lack of political will to implement some of these treaties and international conventions that has been domesticated in nationally in various countries. And the Africa region is not an exception to this. We've seen that happening in the Africa region. Even though there has been progress that has been done, we have a long way to go as far as ensuring that we get there. And it might take so many years to actually get there, to have the equality that we need.
Jode, let's look at the fact that with all of this we're talking about, one major thing stands out. The role of education and mentorship is often emphasized in empowering women. How critical are these two factors in helping young women rise to leadership positions across sectors? I'm speaking from this because I see your strengths, I see your tenacity. I've watched you grow. We're together in 2018, and I've seen you from 2018 grow so well. And that's shows that you had the tenacity, you had the resilience to push despite the barriers that came on the course of you growing on the job. And today is the day to celebrate you and me and also every other woman. So talk to us across these two major things that has to do with education and mentorship to every other girl child who thinks barriers and limitations to growing and getting to the climax of where they desire.
Education is actually very, very important towards enabling us to actually achieve all the things that we listed here. Because when a woman is educated, when a girl is educated, that woman or girl is empowered. Like you mentioned, Julde in 2018 and Julde in 2026 is quite different. The reason being is because, I've learned, I've grown, I went to university and I am educated, I interact with policymakers, I am empowered. So education is something very, very important in order to bridge the gap, in order to ensure that we have equal opportunities like our men counterpart. Education is at the center of, should be at the center of what we do. It should not be something that is, behind. Also, you mentioned something very, very important, mentorship, which I think is very important, especially in the field that we are in, field of journalism. No matter how good you are, you need mentors. You need people that will guide you through the path. You need people that will show you the way. You need leaders that will, show you the way, that will encourage you, that will, mold you into being a better person or the better version of yourself. You need people that will help you discover or rediscover what you're meant to be or what you're meant to do. So I think that is very, very important when it comes to mentorship and education. And African region, I am calling on each and every, African mother, African parent to allow their children to go to school. Generally, when you look at the African region, and to be specific in the Gambia, we have a lot of, girls going to school at the senior secondary level. But you realize that when they reach tertiary and higher education, the figures drop. Men are actually getting more advanced higher education, tertiary and higher education than the girls. What is the problem? The statistics have shown that these are the girls that are forced into, marriage. These are the girls that face, family pressure. These are the girls that were sacrificed because the family could not afford to take both the male child and the female child to school to complete their tertiary and higher education. We've seen all these barriers that are happening. So this is something that we should really collectively work on, fight together, and ensure that girls are educated. Let them not just be limited to higher education, to basic and secondary education, but they should, the goal is to reach tertiary and higher education, because once a girl is educated, the girl is empowered, and once a girl is empowered, the girl empowers communities, and once communities are empowered, nations are empowered. So I think that is very, very important. And over the years, I've seen really the growing trend of young women and girls actually engaging in STEM. I've seen them also engaging in entrepreneurship, which I think is very, very important. When women, we know that naturally women are known to be entrepreneurial in nature, but seeing young girls coming up with initiative innovations, I think that is really, really encouraging. But like I said, even though we've registered steady progress, we have a long way to go in ensuring that we reach to that desired level that we really want to get to.
For you are an accomplished media practitioner and you've gone across the global space. I've seen that work out for you. But for young women aspiring to join journalism or media, what advice would you give them on building confidence? Because confidence is one thing, credibility and resilience in the profession is another thing that most young people need to understand what it means to, if I permit me to use the word rugged on the job, because we know the job is time consuming, and how they need to find a balance in standing tall, because we're talking about building, and also, like we said, the team give to gain. It's time for us to give what we have to the younger ones to understand what it is like to build themselves, basically.
So basically, the advice that I would have for young girls that are coming up in the media fraternity is that they should always have the zeal to learn. Always, that is what I advise my mentees in the Gambia here. Learn and learn and learn. Don't be content. Don't say that, okay, I have the fame, because oftentimes also is the fame that is really stopping a lot of these girls from learning, stopping from a lot of these girls from, aiming higher. Once you're there, once you're in the broadcast media and everyone is talking about you and how good you are, you think that you are good enough. I keep telling these girls that it's never enough to learn. Education cannot be enough. Learn as much as possible. And now that the tools are readily available for them, go online. You don't need someone also to sit you down and tell you that this is A and this is B. You can go online, find all the tools that are necessary, and whatever you don't understand or you find challenging, you can always revert back to your seniors and ask them what this is all about. Because journalism is all about continuous education, because journalism is one field where you get to learn, a little bit about everything. Like you are an expert in everything because you get to learn something about everything. So that is why I always tell people that don't limit yourselves. To the girls out there who wants to be professional journalists, don't limit yourself. Learn, learn, and learn. I know that it's important to specialize in a particular niche, but also it's important to know a little bit about everything so that whenever conversations arise in whatever field that we're talking about, you will be able to contribute your quota. Because journalists are people that are not just educators, but also we empower and also we inform people. And informing people, you need to be educated yourself. In informing people, in relaying the information to the people to be able to consume it and understand what you're talking about, you need to be very grounded in what you're doing. So education is very key. I'm encouraging all girls to have the self-esteem and confidence. Let nothing stop you. Let no barrier whatsoever stop you from, achieving what you're set to achieve. Let nothing whatsoever stop you from tell you that you are not good enough. You are enough. You can do it. If other people there before you can do it, you can do it and even more. So learn, and learn, interact, build connections, build network. Your network should be also very big to a point that, you can, within a click, you can just call someone and they will be able to assist you with whatever you're doing. A journalist without a powerful network and connection, it's like any other, citizen journalist. So learn, and learn. Build your confidence.
Let's look at
you
it.
can
Like I said, we're looking at the focus for the year. That's why you see the symbol that says you give to gain. Basically, that's the symbol that goes for this year's celebration commemorating the International Women's Day. When we give, we gain. Basically, from what you've said, you're mentoring and you're giving back to the girls. Together, let's look at the focus on this. Together, we're forging gender equality through abundance giving of the wealth of knowledge, or I'm looking for a better word to quantify it. What we have to impact. The International Women's Day 2020 Give to Gain campaign encourages a mindset of generosity and collaboration. Give to Gain emphasizes the power of reciprocity and also the support. When people, organizations, and communities give generously, opportunities and support for women increases. Basically, giving is not just subtraction, it is intentional multiplication. When women thrive, we all rise because it's a supportive and collective measure of doing this thing. Whether through donations, just like you mentioned, through knowledge, through resources, through infrastructure, visibility, advocacy, education, just like you hammered on it, training, mentoring, or time. Contributing to women's advancements helps create a more supportive and interconnected world. But let me throw this to you, Gilda. What will you give to gain gender equality in your own space as one who has the more to give out?
First of all, I will give my time, which I've been doing, because first of all, I will give my time, I'll give my resources, and I will ensure that I mentor, continuously mentoring these young girls. Which I am doing, because there is a program that I'm hosting called the Youth Dialogue. The Youth Dialogue gives young people the opportunity to actually explore. It gives the young people to have the avenue to network, but not just that. It gives the young people the opportunity to actually interact and then fight these barriers that have been, in our legal systems. So I'll continue doing that. I pledge to continue supporting young girls. I pledge to ensure that I give them my time, I give them my resources, I give them what it takes to get to wherever that they want to be. Because I feel like that in order for any one of us needs a mentor. I always say that. My mentor, if it were not for my mentor, I would not be where I am today. My mentor is someone who really mentors me not to limit myself. As a result, was because I started off with a newspaper, and then the guy just looks at me and said, like, you're going to school and you've learned radio, you learn television. Why not you also elevate yourself, move from newspaper now that you're here for so long, and go to television? That is how I transitioned from, newspaper to television. So that goes to show that the importance of mentorship. So to the senior journalists out there, please help these young girls, help these upcoming journalists, mold them, encourage them, make them realize that they're worth, make them understand the value of the field, make them understand that they are not for luxury or whatsoever, but to give back. Journalism it itself, every day as we wake up in the morning, all you think of is how are you going to give back to the society? What story are you going to write that is going to transform the lives of people? That article that you are having, does it have the potential to transform the lives of people? Does it have the potential to inform? Does it have the potential to educate? These are the questions that you should be able to take as a journalist. Every morning you wake up, you should be able to give back to the society. I know we are givers, because what we do, we are one field that gives so much, for the fact that we are able to give our time, our resources, our energy, and everything. Journalism is one field that I keep telling my mentees that we don't have time. It's not like a regular 9 to 5 job. You come in the morning and then you stay up till late just to finish the task. So that requires energy, that requires resilience, that requires passion. So I'm calling on the mentors, I'm calling on the senior journalists. Please help these journalists, help them understand, help them fight all these discriminatory laws that are available. Let us advocate for peace. Let us advocate for equal rights. Let us advocate for justice for for girls, women and girls. Let us not limit ourselves. Let us not be too afraid. Let us not be corrupt, because once the only golden thing that we have as journalists is our credibility. And once that is lost, once that is gone, that is like the end of you in the field. So yeah, every day I'll continue, and I pledge to continue supporting women and girls. I pledge to continue the advocacy, and I also pledge to ensure that I influence policymakers in the stories that I'm writing.
Amazing. Let's turn our focus. I like the fact that you are so passionate. That's one thing I love about your person. Passionate and resilient to success stories and all that. But let's turn our focus and look at the men's role in the gender equality, because the men also have to find a way of supporting us. How important is the participation of men in advancing the conversation around women empowerment? Because if we have all the knowledge and we don't have the support system, obviously we're going nowhere. So what's your basic thoughts about that?
I feel like men are not our enemies, and they are partners in development. I always say it, like women can't go without men, and likewise men also cannot go without women, because wherever you see a child, it is between a man and a woman. Wherever you see the progress of a child is between a man and a woman. So we are not enemies, we are partners in development. Men should understand that we are their mothers, we are their aunties, we are their sisters. And then we nurture these men, because if you see any president in this world here is brought to this world by a woman, it's been nurtured by a woman, it's been cared for by a woman. So we are not enemies. It's just all these systems that are being put into our minds that okay, men and women should be enemies in order to progress. Men and women should be at loggerheads in order for them to achieve the much needed developmental aspiration or gender equality. No. Men and women are partners in development, and we should partner. And I'm calling on all the he for she's to continue on their good work. I'm calling on all of them to not relent in their quest to ensure that we achieve gender equality. And I'm calling on other men who are sitting on the fence, who are not decided. I'm calling on other men who think that women are their, enemies or their competitors. I'm calling on them and telling them that women, we are not your enemies and we are not your competitors. We are just partners in development. We complement each other.
I see that. Yeah. I'm sorry I've allowed you to speak more on that, because I see where we don't really have much of the time. I just wanted to quickly wrap up with this question as I bring this to you, basically. I want to talk about the fact in 1 minute, if you can wrap this up for my dear. Looking ahead and what measures, just like we said, the he for she's to support us, or support what we do. What gives you the most hope about the future of women and girls globally if we have the support systems of the he for she's speaking? So just in 1 minute, if you can, basically.
So it's very important, like I mentioned, women, once they are empowered, communities are empowered, countries are empowered. So the empowerment of women and girls benefits everyone, not just the women and girls, but it benefits communities, it benefits everyone. So empowering them requires concerted effort from all stakeholders to come together. The policies should be reviewed to ensure that, they suit the current day realities of the 21st century, and people should also ensure that we see each other as partners in development. Let us uplift each other, let us empower each other, let us support each other, which is for the benefit of all of us, as a whole, as a people, than just looking at all these criticizing feminists, criticizing advocates of gender equality and all of that. I believe that we are all equal in the eyes of the Lord, and all of us should really no one is created inferior or less than another person. So all of us are equal. All of us should ensure that we achieve what we are set out to achieve. All of us should not be limited by barriers that are set out by a number of few. The future of the women and girls around the globe should not be determined by a few. They should allow women to also thrive too, because when women thrive, I'm telling you, when they have opportunities, even scientifically it is proven that when women lead, they have that ability to multitask. But not just that, the work flows naturally, because as human beings, we are generally designed to multitask. We have the ability to multitask. So when women are given the opportunity, communities thrive, countries thrive, everyone enjoys. So I'm calling on each and everyone, policymakers, government, civil society actors, the media, each and every one of us. This is a collective thing. This should not be something that is a war against any other person. It is not a war. It's just calling for the rights that we deserve, the rights that we have, and just taking what we really own. It's not something that we are really begging for. It's something that we own. It's something that we deserve, and it's something that we all should enjoy as human beings.
I like that. Actually broken this down. It's been an amazing discussion with you, Jill. There, I'm so excited. I'm seeing you today, and what a way to celebrate you on the program and every other woman watching us today. I'm sure they've picked a bit of your experience, the need to speak on the necessity of giving to gain, empowering the gift. Thank you so much for sharing your insight with us, for the highlighting the importance of empowering women and the girls across the world. Well, as the world commemorates International Women's Day 2026, it serves, of course, as a reminder that achieving gender equality requires collective commitment, just like Jewel there states there boldly, sustained advocacy and deliberate action from governments, institutions, and individuals alike. She's doing her own role where she's mentoring people in our space of the media, but she's also calling, just like we have across different fields, from the medical, from the banking, from engineering. We have women in men-dominated areas or sectors who need the support to stand tall. Because remember, empowering women is not only about fairness, it is also about building stronger societies, inclusive economies, and a better future for everyone. And of course, Women's Day is today and is celebrated across the world. And I want to say to you, Jill, there, have an amazing celebration there in the Gambia. I see the amazing work you're doing for today to mark this day. Please have the fun as much as you can. Keep telling the girls that they can do better, they can stand tall, and my love to them, and we wish them a wonderful celebration, just like what you've planned to be the biggest celebration for them in the Gambia there with you. Thank you so much, Jill there, and then for all the way from the Gambia, my amazing sister, like I always call her. Thank you so much for sparing our time to be with me on the program to speak on this issue. Have a lovely day, Jill there. I'll speak to you soon. Well, that's it from my end here on this particular discussion segment. And of course, like I said, it's International Women's Day, and women, of course, need to be celebrated across the world. And my guest there spoke extensively on the need to empower the girl child. You see where she mentioned the issue around the early child marriage, the need for girls to be educated, the need for girls to know their worth and their personality and the value addition to every sector of the economy they find themselves. And then we've also called on every other woman doing very well to look at mentorship programs from empowerment schemes, entrepreneur trainings. Let's look at ways we can empower the girl child to stand tall, because the girl child starts from the tender age to begin to understand what life stands for. So we call on government institutions who are also doing their bit to keep doing more, to keep building the capacity of women and make it differently this time around, to ensure that the message of International Women's Day translates into measurable impacts for women, not just here with me in Nigeria. That's why I had to spread the tentacle to go to the Gambia to see what's happening with the Gambia there. And you've heard from her, societal barriers that limits women. Let's see how we can do that. The he for she's, we appreciate the love, we appreciate all the effort you put out. We call on more people to put out more effort so we see that women are given the rights. And with this, I say happy International Women's Day to all the women around the world. Thank you for being you. Thank you for staying beautiful. Thank you for maxing up your emotions and just standing out to support every other person that needs the support that a woman needs to give. Well, it's the Global Morning. And up next is our next discussion segment. Please stay with us as we bring you more updates on the program. Don't go anywhere.
The Federal Ministry of Women Affairs in Abuja formally launched Nigerians' activities for the 2026 International Women's Day and Women's Month celebration. Flagging off the commemoration, the Minister of Women Affairs and Social Development, Iman Suleiman Ibrahim, described the occasion as more than a celebration, noting that it is a call for reflection on progress made and the urgent work required to advance gender equity in Nigeria. She affirmed the ministry's commitment under the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to building a nation where families are stable, women and girls are empowered to realize their full potential, and every child is protected and given the opportunity to thrive.
Let me take this moment to thank the Nigerian press, whose courage, diligence, and commitment to truth amplifying the voices of women and vulnerable holds institutions accountable, shapes public discourse. Although gender-sensitive reporting has historically been limited, recent years have seen a gradual improvement, with more Nigerian media outlets dedicating greater attention to women issues and gender equality.
According to the minister, the 2020's global theme, Bright, Justice, Action for All Women and Girls, alongside the campaign slogan, Give to Gain, underscores the need to institutionalize equity, enforce justice, and ensure that commitments translate into measurable progress. She added that empowering women remains critical to national development, citing an International Finance Corporation estimate that closing the gender financing gap for women-owned SMEs could unlock about $14.8 billion annually for Nigeria's economy.
Today, Nigeria stands as such a pivotal moment where intention, preparation, and structure are aligning to advance the rights, the dignity, and opportunities for women, families, children, and the vulnerable groups in Nigeria.
Also speaking, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, said the event demonstrates government's resolve to advance policies and programs that protect rights, promote justice, and deliver concrete opportunities for women, children, and vulnerable groups nationwide.
I want to commend you on driving the social impact interventions that you have. I commend your dedication, your leadership.
However, stakeholders noted that women's representation in elective positions remains low, stressing that the proposed reserved special seats bill could provide a historic pathway for inclusive governance by addressing structural barriers limiting women's political participation. Sadia Yakubu for Global Television News.
Wake up with Global Morning, your daily guide to what's happening and making the rounds.
We delve into headlines, newspaper reviews, spot-on analysis, policies, current events, real talk, real issues that affect us all.
From the latest trends to the debate, every topic, every angle, Global Morning is where it all starts.
Global Morning.
For the latest issues,
Always on point.
watch Global Morning Monday to Friday at 7 a.m., Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Global Television.
In an age of breaking news, you need a trusted source that prioritizes accurate, factual, and unbiased reporting. This is AM News, and I am Ubong Usoro.
On Global Television, our news is rooted in verified and authoritative storytelling that keeps you educated, informed, and enlightened on all the issues that matter to you. I am Sadia Yakubu. This is Midday News.
You can trust a multi-platform news broadcast real-time and fast-check stories for all the big local and foreign headlines round the clock. I am Ramsey Enoch Agbo. This is News Express.
Our array of anchors delivers the news to our teeming viewers, breaking it down with context and perspective. This is News Cycle on Global Television. I am Anieti Patrick.
And the flagship news is your hub for the day's most engaging stories. This is News Prime, and I am Jumai Manson.
Did you miss any of our news rounds? No worries. Catch up at 10 p.m. and midnight, 7 days of the week. I am Mukhtar Kasim.
Global TV is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. We're active across all social media platforms at Global TV NG.
Global TV News, accurate and unbiased. I'm Uyi Agmofwebe.
To Global Morning. Now, the conflict involving the United States, Israel and Iran has now entered its second week, and the situation continues to evolve rapidly. And in recent days, we have seen intensified United States and Israeli strikes inside Iran, and we've seen also retaliatory missile from Iran and drone attacks across part of the Gulf and the Middle East region. We've also seen growing tensions around the Strait of Hormuz, which is one of the world's most important global oil shipping routes. And there are also important political developments inside Iran itself, following the death of long-term Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And we've seen Iran's Assembly of Experts, the body that has been saddled with the responsibility for appointing the country's Supreme Leader, saying that there are indications that it may today actually begin the selection of a new successor. Meanwhile, Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian has also issued a rare apology to neighboring countries, acknowledging that some strikes affected parts of the region. And he's also saying that Iran does not intend to target its neighbors unless it has been attacked first from those countries. And for many countries around the world, this crisis is not just about events in the Middle East. It also raises broader questions about global energy markets, about international diplomacy, and also the safety of citizens that are living abroad. And of course, here in Nigeria, another dimension has emerged where some people interpret the conflict through religious lines, while others see it as primarily a struggle that is driven by strategic and geopolitical interests. So this morning, we want to examine the situation from the Nigerian perspective. I would ask questions like, what should Nigeria really be paying attention to in this unfolding crisis? And joining me this morning to discuss this particular topic is Dr. Momo Zakari, and he's a scholar of international relations at the iconic Open University and also a researcher associate at the Indo-Pacific Studies Center, Australia. Dr. Momo, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
Thank you very much once again. So I would like for us to look at this from the economic, political, and also religious aspect, because when conflicts like this unfold, we see public narratives often focus, especially here in Nigeria, on religion and ideologies. But analysts frequently say that these conflicts are also shaped beyond this. They are shaped by political power, by strategic alliances, and also economic interests, importantly. So from your perspective, how should we understand the balance between the economic, political, and also the religious perspective of the current Middle East crisis?
Thank you very much. First and foremost, for us to understand the dimension of the conflict, a lot have been said about the immediate and the remote causes of the ongoing war between the United States, Israel, and Iran. At this point, I think the focus is now on what should we do particularly, or what lessons can we learn from this development. But before we look at that very carefully, from the political angle, we can see the imperial power at this level. We can see United States of America exerting the dominance at the international scene. Yes. You can also see the conflict, the violent conflict or the war, as the case may be, within the context of global power contestation between the United States of America, China, and their strategic interest in the Middle East. Yes. And economically, you also discover that the United States of America has significant interest, particularly in the Middle East, and at the same time, China over the years has also signed some trade deal with Iran, and this interest clashes at the point where the United States feels that our interest within the Middle East has been threatened. And by and large, if you look at this war, this ongoing war is more economical than political. So people should look at it more from the economic perspective than the religious or what we call the political perspective. Though this political and strategic, or you can say political, strategic, and economic perspective, they are interrelated in many respects. But bulk of what you see that is happening is more economical than political.
Now, another major emerging concern from the conflict is around the Strait of the Hormuz, where we've seen attacks on oil vessels and warning that shipping movement around that corridor. So, and that corridor is important because it carries a large portion of the world's oil supply. So in fact, reports this morning indicates that United States and Israeli strikes have also targeted these oil storage facilities and those depots in Tehran, and that has also raised further concerns about the disruption of regional oil and energy supply. So from an economic point of view right now, how important is this particular Strait of Hormuz, that waterway? How is it important to the global energy supply?
Okay, at this point, if you look at the Strait of Hormuz, it's just a very narrow part of just 21 miles, or if you convert it in kilometers, it's just a distance of 34 kilometer distance, and it constitutes one of the busiest trade routes in the world, where you discover that 20% of global oil products actually pass through that narrow strip. For instance, if you look at all the oil producing nations within that region, within the Middle East, significant numbers of those oil passes through that tiny narrow part. And today, 20% of oil and 25% of gas pass through this strip. And significantly, it is important in the sense that any blockage or any choke within that point has significant impact in affecting the global oil supply, the supply chain at the international level. So what you see over this week is that you see efforts by either the Iran attempting to block that strait in order to reduce the flow of oil across the world. Yes. Now you will discover that also again within that region, 12% of global trade passes through the Red Sea, and also significant part of it. So as a result of this current ongoing war, that region is now volatile and is now risky for trade that actually for vessels that actually took this route. And the implication is that once this strait is blocked, the implication is that 20% of global oil production is affected. And also another consequences again is that you discover as a result of attack on the oil facilities, it also affects production, the production line. Yes. We've had a case where Qatar and other oil producing countries within that region have actually said that, well, they may stop the production of oil. This also has implication on the global economy. Not only oil, beside oil, other trading activities within that region automatically is affected. So looking at it carefully, you discover that what the strait is so important and so strategic to the Middle East because it controls significant numbers of oil route within that region. So any attack on that region automatically affect the supply chain.
Now let's bring it home to Nigeria. How does that actually, if you put Nigeria in the picture, how does that affect us as a country?
Yes, it affects us in many fronts. The first has to do with, number one, is that it puts significant pressure on the Nigerian government to produce more oil. Because as it is today now, 20% of global oil supply is affected as a result of this war. Yes. What is the implication? The implication, first implication is that, number one, is that the Nigerian government will be forced to sell more crude oil at the international market. Now, let us look at it domestically. In Nigeria today, our refineries are not working. What we have, the only viable option is the Dangote refinery. Now the question is that how much of this crude oil can the Dangote refinery produce to actually meet local demand? So the implication is that you will discover that today Nigeria will be forced to export more crude oil, not forgetting our own domestic consumption. So trying to meet global demand as well as domestic demand becomes a significant challenge. I'll give an example. Some time ago when the federal government of Nigeria actually removed the oil subsidy, we had a report where even the marketers prefer to sell oil products to neighboring countries where they make more profit than selling in Nigeria. Yes. And the government had to intervene and said that no, this will not work out. That this is the best way is that they should sell within Nigeria, that the Nigerian government will not allow any effort by marketers taking oil outside the shore of the country. So the implication is that now Nigerian government now will be forced to produce more because at the international market what happened, as the price increases, what happened? Nigeria will sell more crude oil the international market, but domestically, the Nigerians will suffer from this because number one is that there will be increase in prices of petrol. Automatically, presently as it is now, there is a hike in the price of petroleum products. It goes
over 1,000 naira already.
Over 1,000 naira, which automatically will affect virtually most aspect of our economy because most aspects of our economy will depend so much on petrol. Transport affects a lot of things, agricultural produce, and so many things within the country regulate within the use of petroleum products. Even the ordinary barber that still use generator will be affected. Anybody that use petroleum product, whatever kind, also automatically will be affected by this hike in price. So it has a ripple effect across board.
Now let's look at it again from the international perspective. People have talked about the leadership transition, and that's another development that we're watching closely with the Iranian conflict, with the killing of the Supreme Leader Ayatollah. Iran's experts say the appointment of a Supreme Leader is indicating that it could happen within today, this coming 24 hours. And this position also carries enormous influence over Iran's security policy, also its foreign relations and also military direction. So how significant is this particular moment politically for Iran as a nation, and how might them getting a new leader, also the transition, how can it help in influencing the trajectory of this current conflict?
I think at this point, the Iranian at this point need to choose their leaders themselves, without any form
because
of
Trump is saying he has to have a say in getting a leader for them.
It shouldn't be. It is undemocratic if the president of the United States said he's going to get a leader for them. The Iranians themselves should be the one to choose who are their leaders. Now the problem now is that the influence of the West, particularly in nominating who should be their leader, is driven by the fact that they prefer leader that will actually project their interest, that will relate with them in a friendly way, than a leader that will be autocratic. I think that is their major concern. I think at this point, the Iranians should be allowed to choose their leader. And the first point of call for them to be able to choose their leader is that there is a need for negotiation, there is a need for diplomacy, where there should be an intervention. But unfortunately, what we envisaged was that even when this war actually started, the first few days that this war started, we expected that significant numbers of countries like China and other developed societies should have come to intervene, particularly mediate in this conflict to see how this conflict can be addressed. But rather what we've seen is just a mere condemnation of the attack. I think it's beyond that. I think there should be a room where the Iranians should be given opportunity to actually elect their leaders. They know the kind of leadership they want. They should be given opportunity to elect their leader. Leadership should not be imposed on the Iranian. Because if leadership is imposed on the Iranian, it has consequences, whether from within or outside the Iranian state. So what should happen is that the Iranians should be given opportunity to actually elect who they want. I think that is the best thing for the Iranian at this point. Imposing an external leader will never solve the problem, but rather let the Iranian themselves choose who will become their leader. I think that is what is key at this point.
Still talking about the leadership, like we've heard that the person that is selected can either be a person that will bring an end to this war or maybe escalate. Is there any international procedure that we see that could get them a leader that would be able to de-escalate this warfare and maybe sue for peace rather than continue the escalation we have seen?
Yes, I think we've seen some of the even within the Iranian system, there are individuals who have the capacity, but at this point, those individuals' words cannot carry significant weight. I think at this point, the United States should, the United Nations at this point should intervene in this regard. I think the role of the United Nations is very key at this point in bringing about lasting peace in Iran, because once the United Nations intervene at this point to actually see how there is a complete a negotiation and within among the parties involved in this conflict, I think it will go a long way in determining who become the leader in Iran. At this point, the United Nations should actually send a peacekeeping force to Iran. At that point, it will actually suppress the ongoing war and actually call for a peaceful election or selection, as the case may be, and let the Iranian themselves appoint or elect who becomes their leader, and it should not be imposed on them by any elite or external force within Iran or outside Iran. I think at this point, the United Nations need to intervene at this point. It is very, very important. But it's very unfortunate that the United Nations has only been working at the level of condemning the war without making some taking some proactive plans or measures to address this problem. Because at this point is that the major problem facing the Iranian state now at this point is that who will now bring the people together? Because all the leadership structure has been disorganized within Iran, and automatically you cannot hold on to a particular political party, you cannot hold on to a particular set of leadership, a particular leader that you can say, oh, this leader will be able to bring Iranians together at this point. There must be an independent external body that will intervene in this conflict, that will allow for a ceasefire, so that the Iranian can sit down and actually decide who becomes their leader. And at this point, I think I will advise as a way of solving the problem is that within the Iranian state, leadership should not be imposed on the people, and externally, external forces should not impose leadership on the Iranians. It should be more of a cooperation. It should be more of a collaboration, and the Iranians should choose the leader of their type. I think the leader of their kind, or whatever kind of leadership
they decide for themselves. Yes. Now let's look at it, because the war has also gone beyond Iran and Israel. The conflict has appeared to be drawing towards other countries across the Middle East. We have seen missile interceptions in the Gulf, tensions around the United States military bases, and also warnings across issues and cities like Beirut. And interestingly, the president of Iran, Pezeshkian, has come out to issue a sort of apology to neighboring countries, saying Iran does not want to target them, except it has also been targeted from those countries. Yet we see reports that missile interceptions and attack have continued in parts of that region. So does this apology signal a genuine attempt to prevent a wider war, or could it be more of a tactical move that the current leadership is employing in Iran?
Well, if you look at the statement made by the Iranian president, I think it's a right step in the right direction, because in all this war and all that has happened, at the end of the day, we don't know how long this war will last. And because we don't know how long this war will last, and even if the war will last up to 5, 10, 6 years, as some have envisaged, at the end of the day, we will come back to diplomacy. Diplomacy still remains a very viable option in addressing this problem. Now, looking at the statement made by the Iranian, it was a wonderful statement, a very good one. It's just like the Iranian government making a mistake by attacking their neighbors in the first instance, and going back to say, no, what we've done was wrong, and the way forward is that henceforth they will not. It's a good step. You see, when we talk about reconciliation is a process. It's not just something you just jump into. By him telling the neighbors that they are sorry for what they've done, because earlier they've said that they are going to attack their neighbors should, in case the United States or Israel actually use any of their military base there to attack them. Since that was not the case, and the leader decided to say no, for what has happened, that they are sorry, I think it's a genuine cause. And I believe at this point, the United States of America and Israel should actually take it up from that point and see how they can address that issue. I think it's the right point. But however, there was a statement made by the military saying that, oh, what he said was not right, that the war should continue. I think it's not the best, because at this point, the military remarkably has been weakened, and we cannot continue this war. The war should be discontinued by whatever means, because as it is, a lot of life has been lost, a lot of critical infrastructure have been destroyed as a result of this war. The truth of the matter is that let us also look at the long-term implication of this war, because at the end of the day, in rebuilding Iran or whatever that has been damaged in Israel will take years. It involves a lot of money for those reconstruction processes to be taking place. I think at this point, with the damages done so far, I think every right-thinking and peace-loving individual should be thinking of how to solve the problem. I'm sure, if I may speak from the perspective of the Iranian president, is that he has looked at the damages done and he has looked at the consequences of what has happened, and he's now thinking, oh, there's a need for them to actually restrain. So at this point, I think we should call on the United States of America, Israel, and also Iran, that all the parties involved in this war should actually restrain from carrying out further attacks.
But can we see restraint when the issues on ground have not been tabled, when these grievances have not been solved, is there a place for restraint without genuinely solving those problems that have been raised before now?
Yeah, there are a whole lot of issues that have been raised. If you look at some of the demands made by the United States and Israel to Iran, they revolve around issue of their nuclear enrichment and also their development of a missile capacity and the funding of proxies that have constituted threat to significant numbers of countries within the Middle East. Looking at what has happened so far, we can see that significant numbers of these uranium enrichment sites have been destroyed as a result of this war. We can also see that even some of the missiles have been affected, and we can also see limited activities to some extent of these proxies that have. So I think at this point, I think every party should go back to the drawing board.
Now let's look at regional bodies, because we've heard that those people might have a bit of perspective and role to play. Looking at the diplomatic landscape, like you earlier envisaged, institutions like the African Union and also ECOWAS from Africa here, sometimes we see they play mediation roles in this conflict. So do such organizations, do they realistically have any influence in crisis outside the continent of Africa, or is their role largely limited to just regional diplomacy within the continent?
Yes, they can intervene, because the truth of the matter is that African Union has significant role to play in this regard. Because if you look at what is happening at the international scene, an event may happen in one part of the world and it will trigger another in another part of the world. And if you look at even within the Middle East, even some of those countries that were affected, they are members of the Arab League. And if you look at in Africa, we have some African countries who are also members of the Arab League. So directly or indirectly, the African Union is affected. So at this point, the African Union should actually use the United Nations, which is a global body, to see how they can push for their intervention in this conflict, to see possible way of how the respective parties can be brought to a common table for easy settlement of this war, because this war, as the day goes by, is getting more difficult to understand, and as the war continues, more actors will be involved in this war, and escalating it beyond the level that it is now, I think will not be good for the international system. So African Union significantly must make some statement, must attempt to actually try to see how to talk to all the parties involved. They can also use the United Nations, and they should also come up with a common position, condemn all the parties involved in the conflict, and try to see how the immediate and the root cause of these issues can be addressed, rather than remaining silent. Remaining silent is not the best.
Silence has never been an answer, has it?
That is true.
Another practical concerns that we've heard is around potential travels, pilgrimage, and business movements, and especially Nigerians that we travel to the Middle East for pilgrimage and also trade and employment. We have a lot of Nigerians that live in there. With these disruptions of airspace and heightened security concerns, how might this affect those movements and those activities that we see around the Middle East?
Yes, if you look at the Middle East, I think we have a total of 110 airports within the Middle East, and that is huge. Not only Nigerians alone, automatically trading activities within those regions, particularly that has to do with flight around those regions, is affected. That is just one. Number two, because significant numbers of those countries within the Middle East, or if not all, have actually closed their airspace because of fear of a missile attack and all whatnot. The implication is that trading activities, the movement of persons across countries within the Middle East, they are affected. That is just on one side. And on the other side, significant numbers of nationals across the world in those countries are also affected. I heard a military general from Sri Lanka yesterday was saying that they have significant numbers of their national in Iran. We also heard that of North Korea, that significant population of North Korean national. We also have Nigerians in Iran and also in Israel. We also have Nigerians in Qatar and other parts of the Middle East. The question now is that now the airspace has been closed. Automatically, it has implication on even religious activities. Christians who go to Israel for now will not be able to go, pending when the issue is resolved. Muslims who go to Saudi Arabia, also the airspace has been closed. So it has also implications on people going for either the lesser Hajj or whatever Hajj that Nigerians goes for. Automatically it affects them, because if you are supposed to go for Hajj, say for instance, maybe in June, and there is ongoing war, you discover that year is affected. The implication is that you have to postpone the Hajj to the following year.
Yes.
So it has both religious implication, it has both financial implication. There are a whole lot of Nigerians who are traders in the Middle East. We have so many people who work there. In terms of capital flight and other forms of remittance that come, remittance particularly that comes to Nigeria, there are Nigerians who live in those Middle East countries that earn a lot, and from their remittance they send back to Nigeria. Automatically that is also affected. So you discover that in terms of remittance, it has implication. In terms of trading activities, it has implication. In terms of social activities in the area of pilgrimage, is also affected. So virtually all aspects of those our social and economic life is affected. That is just the truth about it.
Now, other things we've heard is around the safety of those Nigerians that live there, because the government yesterday also issued a statement saying that it is monitoring closely the situation, and it's also preparing contingency measures to maybe evacuate or guarantee safety of people there. And embassies across the region have also been reportedly placed on alert, and discussions are underway about evacuation plans, like we said, from Iran, and many of them are also students. So from a policy standpoint, what responsibilities does the Nigerian government have in ensuring that their citizens are safe during international crisis like this particular one?
Okay, I think bulk of the responsibility of the Nigerian government lies with the various embassies, consulates in those countries. I think the first point of call is that I am sure the various embassies we have, or consulates, or high commissions we have in those countries, they know the total numbers of Nigerians living in those countries. That is one. The first point of call is that they should actually reach out to them and know how they are faring, and also see how they make arrangement with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and other relevant agencies in Nigeria.
Yes.
Just to see how those Nigerian ones, the situation actually dials down remarkably. They can see how they can bring back those Nigerians home. I think the first point of call is the embassy relating with Nigerians in the diaspora, and see how they can get to know their location. And by the time they get to know their location, they should also make contingency plans at home here on how they can actually bring them back. Years back, we've had a similar case in Libya and other parts of the world where the Nigerian government actually intervened by sending, what will I call it, the Nigerian government made significant plan to actually bring back significant numbers of Nigerians in the diaspora, particularly in those affected countries. I think the same measure should also be applied, and the Nigerian embassy in those respective countries should ensure that they have detailed statistics of Nigerians who live in those countries, and see how they can get in touch with those countries and give them timeline that should, in case there is a need for this is what they should do. And I know by now some Nigerians probably would have contacted the embassy in those respective countries to see how they can make arrangements. Because on the social media we've seen a lot of videos of some actually saying that where they are today, that they stay in, particularly those of them in Israel, that they are in bunker, that they are hiding in bunkers,
really
and so forth and so on. They are not even in safe places. And very little do we know about even Nigerians in Iran because of the communication. So you just imagine how Nigerians, how the Nigerians in Iran there. I think it's a pathetic situation, because I think the federal government should also see how they can also discuss closely with the Nigerian ambassador in Iran. We need to understand and know the picture on ground. What is the situation of Nigeria? Are there Nigerians affected by this war? If there are Nigerians, what is the embassy doing, or what is the government doing to address this problem, and so forth and so on? And I think at this point, if there is any opportunity, and which we all desire, where we will now have an avenue for a ceasefire, I think the Nigerian government should also make a significant plan on how Nigerians can be returned back to the country. I think that is also very important. I think the government, I believe at this point, they are taking a close look at the situation, as they've said, and I believe that once the the opportunity avail itself for them to bring back Nigerians, they should do that without further delay.
That's an awesome one. And another aspect is we know that Nigeria's foreign policy structure or posture is described as a non-aligned, meaning we do not really side with either places. That's our traditional foreign policy. From that, and at the same time, of course, putting side by side, nations also must protect their strategic national interests, and they also must maintain relations, because no nation can survive as an island nation. So in situations like this, what does a balanced diplomatic posture look like for Nigeria?
Well, I think let me first and foremost thank the federal government at this point for the posture that they've taken. And if you look at even some of the statement that comes from the federal government of Nigeria, I think they've maintained a balanced posture. I think we must give that to them. They've tried in this regard of not taking side. I think I'm pleased with that, and many Nigerians are pleased with the federal government that they've not taken side in this conflict, knowing how volatile religion is in Nigeria. Because in Nigeria we have some individuals who are pro-Israeli, some are pro-Iranian, and the government has been able to handle this issue. So that has been the position of the federal government. I think we should commend the federal government in that regard. However, that does not mean that there are no pockets here and there, maybe few individuals who have been coming up to actually whip sentiment on wars that has no bearing on their life, and a war that has no bearing on how their standard of living can be enhanced in Nigeria. I think the federal government has taken a non-aligned position, just come as a neutral body. I think they should maintain that throughout this war, as long as the war will last. The Nigerian government should condemn and should actually push for peace on both sides, and should call for both the Iranian government, the United States and Israel to actually push for peace. I think that position remains the best option for the Nigerian government. I think the Nigerian government should not align to the United States, neither should they align to Iran, no matter the pressure, whatever the pressure may be, either external or internal pressure. The Nigerian government should remain neutral in this, because taking side in either of this warfare will have its own implication domestically in Nigeria, because in Nigeria we have the Shiite Muslims here who are apologetic or sympathetic to the Iranian government. We also have some also the Christian side who are also sympathetic to the Israel. So at this point, not taking side to a large extent has helped the Nigerian state, where the Nigerian state is neither in support of the United States and Israel, or we talk about Iran. I think it's a good position that the government has taken, and we should commend them for that.
Another thing that accompanies conflicts like this is humanitarian crisis. And just yesterday, the Undersecretary of the UN, that's Fletcher, we saw a video where he came out and said countries have now even spent more on warfare, on the practical execution of warfare, than on humanitarian outreach and all of that. So how do we find a way to turn the tide in seeing that rather than we spending on armament, spending on acquisition of this particular armament and all of that, we concentrate on humanitarian outreach to ensure that this conflict are mediated? Don't forget, it's not only in Iran, we have conflicts also across Africa and other parts of the world, of course.
Yes, I think in this regard, the United States also will push it back to the United States, to the United Nations rather. You see, today, I did a research recently on the implications of the proliferation of arms across the world. If you look at it globally, the profit of arms manufacturing firms around the world has skyrocketed, especially when the Russian-Ukraine war started. And with the ongoing war between the United States, Israel, and Iran, more of those manufacturing firms will continue to make more profit from war. There are companies that makes profit from war, that the more nations go to war, they benefit. We have them across, but not only in the United States, across the world, in Israel, in Britain, in France, and in so many countries around the world. And even those of them, even aside from the manufacturers, we also have those who are suppliers, who are also in the supply chain, in ensuring that they actually make profit from war. I think the United Nations should come up with a very strong position on how to address key issues of armed products. Because what we see today is that previous effort by the United Nations in addressing the issue of the proliferation of arms is not effective. Why? Because of lack of enforcement mechanism at that level. I think at this point, the United Nations should actually see how they can come up with a position where nations should be restrained. Even the export of arms should also be regulated remarkably, because the numbers of arms we have in circulations are in millions, and we cannot continue to push for peace where we've never had total control over the proliferation of arms. So the United Nations should work closely with other regional bodies to see how they can address the proliferation of arms across the world. Look at in Africa, we have significant numbers of arms across the African continent, and these arms, at every slightest provocation, these arms are used. In Nigeria, one of the issues that have actually sustained the activities of the Boko Haram is the proliferation of arms. So the proliferation of arms has done more harm to the international community and even to developing countries, particularly the African continent, than any other way in any other part of the world. So at this point, I think the United Nations should work in collaboration with other regional bodies and sub-regional bodies to actually address this issue of proliferation of arms, because it's also very, very important. Then at the national level, the Nigerian government too should actually work closely with relevant government agencies in addressing the issue of the proliferation of arms, because the level of arms we have today in circulation is scary compared to what we have 10, 15 or 20 years back. So the government at every level, so all hands must be on deck at the national, the regional, the sub-regional, and even at the global level to address this issue. It's very important.
You talked about proliferation and the role that UN has to play. We've seen that the UN has come up with lots of treaties and charters, and many of these countries are signatories to those in terms of nuclear and also the disarmament race. But we've not seen those things turn to real-time results, because nations are still acquiring armaments, we're still seeing attacks. So where is the disconnect between these policies that have been on ground and the real-time implication we see on ground?
I think at this point, the United Nations lack the power of enforcement. And it is so because at the international level, every nation is an independent nation. And because every nation is an independent nation, every nation seeks to promote their foreign policy at the international level. Now, the case that we have today is that the Big Five, or what we call the P5 within the United Nations, they are also key producers of arms. Now, at this point, I think the United Nations General Assembly should see how they can draw the attention and continue to draw the attention of these P5 or these permanent members of the United Nations to the dangers, because what we see today that is ongoing, significant numbers, if you check countries with the highest numbers of arms, in terms of arms sales or in terms of arms production, they are among the P5. You see them, they are among the ones that produce those arms. And the question is that where do those arms end? They ended up in the hands of the developed nations. And some of those arms also ended up in the hands of terrorist organizations around the world. So to address this problem, for you to address the root cause of this problem, you must first of all address it from the root. And the first point of call is the developed nations. The developed nations themselves must actually look inward. So when we talk about issue of enforcement will start by individual nations. The United Nations General Assembly remain one of the democratic platform where they can draw the attention of the P5 on the issue of arms proliferation. Even addressing the issue of arms proliferation at this level will be very, very difficult. Nations themselves must be willing, and they must look at the consequences. And the United Nations should go beyond just making statements calling for the need for the states within the international system not to sell arms. Today we see more nations keep selling arms, but these arms need to be regulated. They need to be regulated because we cannot continue to have this volume of arms around the world and still think we can have peace. We cannot have peace except there's a need for us to look inward. So globally, the international system must look, the United Nations must look, regional organizations must look, and also regulate arms production. Within even the developed societies, there are arms manufacturers. The question is that how do they sell this arms? The channel of arms distribution should be monitored globally. The United Nations should monitor the channels through which arms are manufactured. I remember years back, I think around 2010, 2011, where in Nigeria, at the Apapa port, they discovered some arms that came allegedly, either they said from Iran or so to Nigeria and so forth and so on. So all the channels through which arms are sold at the international level should be monitored. And again, the issue of the black market through which arms are sold also at the international level should be monitored by the United Nations or other regional organizations. This will also help to address the issue of the proliferation of arms across nations.
Now, another question that analysts have been saying is this particular conflict might tilt the balance of power, where we might see realignment, because people have said with Iran being attacked, we've not seen those so-called allies, Russia and China and maybe North Korea, we've not seen them maybe come to the aid of this particular nation in theory. So is there a possibility that with this conflict, one of the implications afterwards will be a realignment of global balance of power?
Yeah, if you look at the international system, from after the Second World War, we had a bipolar system where we have two dominant power, the United States and the Soviet Union, each of them pursuing their own ideological framework at the international level. The United States pursuing the capitalists, while the socialists pursuing socialism and communism, that is Russia. Now, by 1991, following the collapse of the Soviet Union, we now have a unipolar world order. Now, as the world progresses, we now see a system where there is an emergence of other global power like the European Union, the BRICS state, actually challenging the dominance of the United States of America. And in return, the United States of America is not willing to relinquish that position as the global superpower. And what you see today is that, I will use the word that within the international system, there are head boys and there are head girls. Let me use those words loosely. There are head boys and there are head girls.
What does that mean?
The head boys are states like the United States of America, Britain, Russia, China. Their responsibility is to permit some countries that are not in the right direction to the right direction. So what we see the case of the Iran is that we now have the head boy who have a student and discover that this one is a rebel and should be permitted to the right direction. So what you see that is happening within the international system is the United States saying that no, our dominance is still key within the international system.
How do you now juxtapose that with sovereignty of nations? If you're a head boy, but this is a sovereign nation, are you allowed by international law to have a say in how I govern my own affairs?
Well, let me also tell you the issue of sovereignty. You see, in contemporary era of globalization, the concept of sovereignty to a large extent has been affected by globalization. That is one. Whether we like it or not, scholars have debated it. It is affected by globalization. Today, at what point do you talk about sovereignty? Where do sovereignty start and where do sovereignty end? Where you now have within the international system that as a nation, if you take up or if you attack your citizen and that act constitutes a war crime or violation of international law, the United Nations under its regulation can intervene to address this problem. You discover that even the United Nations in itself can also intervene using the United States of America and other power to actually intervene to address
Security Council.
It's part of the Security Council to address the issue of human rights violation in your country. So at that point also you also ask, where is your sovereignty?
Yes.
Now, to actually look at this issue carefully, you also discover that at what point do you say you are a sovereign nation where a bigger power see your act as a threat to the international peace and security? For instance, the intervention, the U.S. attack on Iran is on the ground that what Iran attack pose significant threat to the peace in the Middle East, and not only to the Middle East, to the international system. And for that reason, the United States feel justified that they
But don't forget, there are also counter arguments that have said that the reason for vested interest.
It's for interest. We know that already, but sometimes what most nations do, most superpowers do, is that they look for an avenue to justify their actions.
So when there are internal cracks,
yes, they use that as a platform to justify their action. Look at what happened in Venezuela. You discover that the United States actually used that as an opportunity to actually, they use the ground of drugs.
Yes.
That yes, they look for an evidence that they use to project their interest, that that Venezuelan government have been in the forefront in promoting drugs, that they are into drugs terrorism. They brought in new concept of drug terrorism, that as the basis, and that actually puts significant threat on the lives of the United States citizens, and at the same time there is a need for them to intervene. But beyond that, we know some of these interventions are economically driven. Iran too, the intervention in Iran has an economic undertone. So you discover that what some of the reasons they give to the developed nations actually give to intervene. Look at the case of the Russia-Iran, the Russia-Ukraine war. The justification on the part of Russia is that their sovereignty is being threatened, their existence is being threatened. So the developed countries, the P5, they have a way of coming up with one or two reasons to justify their intervention. So that is what we see at the international level. So you now explain at what point should the issue of sovereignty count, at what point should the issue of national interest count, at what point should national security count. So these are some of the issues that we keep looking at on a daily basis. So the situation now is that developed countries, the advanced countries, will always look for a reason why they intervene. And they will tell you, because once you bring up issue of sovereignty at the international level, they will actually look for a way to intervene. So that is just what we see today.
Now, for smaller nations like Nigeria, I wouldn't say we're a small nation, but for smaller nations, what are the lessons to be learned from this particular conflict?
Number one, the first lesson to learn. Sometimes, let us know, sometimes we don't look at the pain, but let us look at the lessons. What are the lessons? Iran, one of the lessons we can learn from Iran is that be careful the kind of friends you keep at the international level. I believe from the beginning of this war, analysts have predicted that Iran, that should, in case the United States or Israel attack Iran, Russia, North Korea, and China will come to their aid. But unfortunately, that did not happen. Even if they will intervene tomorrow, it's just medicine after death. They are just coming at the wrong time. So their intervention is not even okay. Look at, for instance, the British actually promised the United States that they're going to send 2 warships to actually support. But Donald Trump told them that there is no need. That when they needed them, they were not available. Not now that they've actually concluded the war, that they've already won the war. Now, you see, Nigeria should learn a lesson. You see, the international system is so dynamic. In politics, there is no permanent enemy, no permanent interest. Nations should learn that there is a limit to which you can depend on another nation for your defense. Today, the lesson from Iran is a big lesson for African nations to learn. The lesson from Venezuela, that we're also anticipating that Russia, China, and North Korea will assist, will intervene, that if they sign bigger trade deal with those countries, they will come to their aid. We discover that those 2 countries, from the lessons from Venezuela and Iran, they've learned bitter lessons. So now, I don't think Iran or Venezuela will count on China or Russia in the future for any form of defense. Because the thinking is that, by the time they sign a very robust trade deal with them, it will actually help to actually help them in a situation like this. But we are not seeing that play now. Nigerian government should learn. Choose your friend wisely. I think that is what I would tell the Nigerian government. Choose your friend wisely. You need to choose your friend wisely. And again, another lesson we should also learn from the international, from this war, is that peace remain a very viable option, remain a very good option. And in this regard, I think I will tie it to diplomacy. Diplomacy is very, very important in everything. And nations should actually learn to actually avoid war. Because the consequences that goes with war, I'm telling you, is so severe. I will tell you, both on the part of the United States, Israel, and Iran, a lot of resources that ordinarily that would have been channeled to address humanitarian needs in those countries have been channeled towards fighting this war. So we should also learn from that. And again, another lesson we should also learn, again, particularly Nigeria, we should also look inward, particularly our leaders. Nigeria is faced with a lot of problem, a lot of internal problem within. You see, the United States and Israel will not be able to succeed maybe 100% in the attack on Iran if the citizens are 100% with their leadership. So that points to the fact that in Nigeria, the leadership, and not only Nigeria, in Africa, the leadership should also consider the plight of their citizens as very, very key. Because today, the uprising you have, or what you call the protests you have in Iran, they are as a result of long-term bad governance within the system. So the Nigerian leaders should start thinking now and start looking inward on how they can address the internal problem, the issue of bad governance, and so forth and so on. They are also very, very important, because the issue of bad governance has led to insecurity, has led to a whole lot of problems within the Nigerian state. So the leaders should start looking inward on how to actually address this problem. And also to add again is that the leadership in Nigeria, and also by extension the African nation, should actually see areas where there is tendency that there might be conflict, or there might be an issue that will actually lead to protest. Those issues should be addressed. And one of those issues that we're talking about is the issue of election. The issue of conducting free, fair, and credible election remain very, very key to Nigeria. Because the case, one of the cases, if you look at the case of the Iran system, it has been an autocratic leadership style where the rights of the citizens, significant numbers of the citizens, were violated. So the Nigerian government should also look inward and also learn from the lesson that there's a limit to which you can suppress your citizen. Because if you suppress them to some level, it will call for international intervention. And once it calls for international intervention, it becomes an issue. That takes us to the issue of security in Nigeria. The Nigerian government must start looking inward on how to address the growing security situation, because the security situation has actually created a crack on the Nigerian state that if nothing is done to address this, we don't pray for something bad, but it is not good for us as a nation. We cannot develop because social and economic activities cannot strive in an environment of violence. So the government must look inward and see how those issues can be addressed. Let Nigerians begin to feel the impact of the policies of the government. At least at this level, people expect that Nigerians should be feeling the positive impact of the subsidy removal. But today, what we are seeing is the reverse. Our refineries are still in comatose. Nothing has been done to revive those refineries. And there are a whole lot of issues. Look at issue of unemployment. Look at issue of underemployment. Look at a whole lot of issues. The economy is in comatose. By the time you place some of the indices or indicators of development side by side with what is happening in Nigeria, you discover that we are far from telling ourselves the truth. So the government must go back to the drawing board, see how they can address key issues that relate to development at all levels, whether political, economic, social, or whatever kind of development. This will help the Nigerian nation moving forward.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Momoh, for your refreshing insights and for coming on the program today.
Thank you very much.
Now, the situation in the Middle East continues to evolve, and as we have discussed this morning, conflicts in the region can have ripple effects across the global system. And for Nigeria, the key challenge is not choosing sides in a distant conflict, but in understanding how global development affects our economy, how it affects our citizens abroad, and of course, diplomatic priorities. Thank you so much for staying on Global Morning. We'll take a short break, and when we return, the show will be wrapped up.
Wake up with Global Morning, your daily guide to what's happening and making the rounds.
We delve into headlines, newspaper reviews, spot-on analysis, policies, current events, real talk, real issues that affect us all.
From the latest trends to the debate, every topic, every angle, Global Morning is where it all starts.
Global Morning,
for the latest issues,
always on point.
Watch Global Morning Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Global Television.
to have you back, of course, since Global Morning. We've had a lot dished out to you. I'm sure you got really excited with us today because we told you it wasn't a day to miss out. And we're here, Mukhtar and I are here. We hope you enjoyed the discussion.
It's great to have you back, Anita. Yes, yeah. The discussions have been very topical, from the International Women's Day and, of course, to the ongoing
everything
crisis.
Seems to be on international base.
We went international today, actually.
I'm telling you, very interesting discussions there. I love the fact that your guest was able to break down these issues, see how we can grow past every stage. Look how this has actually affected the global space and how we can improve on that. Hopefully, just like we had earlier in the newspaper review segments, we talked about the global peace, where this whole war across the international, the world is destroying rather than building, and it's high time the narrative starts to change. Let's look at where strategic or diplomatic measures of sitting down to dialogue is the better way to deal issues than just always wanting to go to war, you know, strike, air strikes here and there. Honestly. Because, like they say, when two elephants are fighting, it's the grass who suffers. So the people are bearing the brunt of the whole stress, the humanitarian crisis that comes to in the front run of the. So the whole thing is really getting, for me, it's getting on my nerves. I'm feeling really bad about the whole thing. It's a negative because if you look at those injured, those who died,
over 1,000 people are dead already.
It's so much. These are people who never thought of their lives ending in the way it just ended. Because nobody likes war. War is the worst thing that can happen to any climate, where you're having a peaceful home from nowhere, everything is destroyed, you don't have a family, changes your whole, everything about you just changes. So I think it is high time this narrative starts to change and the best bets comes to play for the nation. And of course, it's still International Women's Day. You owe me an outing today. I'm all dressed up.
No, you like to see I'm a he for she. I don't know if I agree, but
no, you have to agree to this.
But then for today, I might just it's a great one. Of course.
Is trying to escape.
And with your guest, one of the highlights of the conversation for me was the fact that she said women are now being heard in those places.
True.
And how she talked about she would give her time,
of course,
her energy and all of that. And I think women should take a cue from that and to know that if you want your story to change, you have to be the person to push it yourself. Nobody is going to carry your cause on your head if you're not on the forefront. So women out there have got to be champions of their own cause, making sure that they work to get to where they want to get to.
Well, it's international.
And of course, the men will support them.
No, of course, we have to have the hero. He or she, they're like, well, it's International Women's Day, and of course, every woman, like I said earlier, go out, celebrate yourself, support every other woman around you who you see don't have the strength or don't have the provision to do that for herself, and also ensure that we all collectively have a happy day today across the world. From us here, we say Happy International Women's Day, and of course, that brings us to where we draw the curtain on the program Global Morning. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you for allowing us grace your screen and give you the amazing rundown of our schedule for today. And that ends us, and we say thank you one more time. I am Anita Patrick.
And I am Mukhtar Kasim. Saying a very big thank you.